Bismillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to this series entitled Choose Well, a map to daily life decisions. In this series, inshallah, we will be exploring ways in our deen, both spiritual ways and rational ways that can help me and you and our families and our community, inshallah, make better decisions in their daily life. So this series, inshallah, will be a number of programs, and we will be exploring bit by bit the important building blocks and foundations in giving me, you, the skills to live lives that are richer, that are fuller, that are more beneficial for our here and also our hereafter, inshallah. To begin, I'm sure you have wondered, as I have, does Islam contain principles and processes for daily life decision making? We know that Islam is a deen, and deen encompasses every aspect of our lives. But does Islam give me those skills, those principles, processes to help me make, let's call them mundane or regular or ordinary decisions? For example, decisions at my personal life, at my family life, for my career, for my education. Should I rent this apartment or not? Should we undertake this home project or not? What school should we send the children to? Should I take this new job? Where should I volunteer my free time? And the like of these ordinary, mundane decisions. We know that Islam is a comprehensive way of life that is sensitive to the needs of the human being. And the human being is a composite of body, of mind, and of soul. The human being has a mind and an intellectual or rational dimension, a material bodily dimension, and also a spiritual dimension as well. And Islam, being the natural way, the way of fitrah, it speaks to the human being at all dimensions, and it unifies all dimensions as well. And therefore, in order to understand Islam's guidance, practical guidance for decision making, we must, I think, intuitively accept the fact that that guidance is going to be at different levels. For my bodily welfare, intellectual welfare, and also my spiritual welfare as well. Where do we find these principles? I think it's rare that we are taught these principles, and it's rare that we think about Islam as providing these practical principles and processes. So where do we find them? Theoretically, we would find them in two realms. We would find the spiritual principles in the realm of Islamic spirituality, what would be called tazkiya nafs, the purification of the nafs. So in that field, in that legacy, we would find very important principles to guide our decision making for spiritual, to optimize and maximize spiritual welfare. We would also find in the legal realm, in the realm of what is called usul al-fiqh. And usul al-fiqh simply means legal theory. And as a part of legal theory, we have another realm which is called the maqasid of the sharia, the higher objectives and aims of the sharia. And we also have another realm within legal theory called al-qawa'id, al-fiqhiyya, or legal principles, legal maxims. Now, those have very powerful, important legal applications, but at the same time, they represent modalities of reasoning. They represent avenues of how to reason. They represent avenues of how to think and how to balance benefit and harm. So we would find these practical principles in these realms. On the spiritual realm, tazkiya nafs, and then in the legal realm, usul al-fiqh, legal theory, al-qawa'id al-fiqhiyya, legal maxims, and also al-maqasid, al-shar'iyya, the higher objectives of the law. And from these realms, we can extract principles of practical value for life and daily decision making. For example, from the spiritual realm, we can extract concepts of sa'ada, what is happiness. And unless we have an understanding of happiness, we won't be able to condition our thinking to attain that happiness. We think and plan and choose and evaluate on the basis of what we believe will make us happy. And so the question of what is happiness is fundamental to the idea of principles and processes for daily life decisions. We also need to understand from this realm the idea of freedom. What is freedom? What freedom do I want? What freedom do I choose for myself? What level? What types of freedom? In order to actualize and realize my idea of happiness. We also learn from this realm, very importantly, what is the locus of my perception? What is the locus of my feeling? What is the locus of my choice? And that realm is the realm of the qalb, or the spiritual heart, because the heart is the seat of cognition, of perception, and of choice. And of course, cognition, perception, and choice are all important, fundamental, foundational, essential in the principles and processes for decision making to optimize welfare. We also draw from this realm of tazkiya an understanding of my lower self, my drives, my passions, my inclinations, and how they color and how they cue my decision making, to become more aware of my spiritual makeup and the tendencies and proclivities within me, and how that affects decision making. We also learn about the role of the intellect and how the intellect connects to the qalb, the spiritual heart, but is also greatly affected by the nafs, or the base self. And we learn about important principles of Islamic character as a result, because as you know, principled decision-making built on core values is essential in guiding us when we make life choices and life decisions, meaning that we live in a way that is whole and integral. We live in a way to live and realize our core values. And so our decision making must be within the sphere or the envelope of those values. So those are some of the practical concepts that we can draw from the field of tazkiyatun nafs. Now, what about the field of legal theory? Though it may seem to me, and maybe perhaps to you, that legal theory is a theoretical realm of law only, that's actually not the case. legal theory or usul al-fiqh is not usually taught in a way that is practical and applicable and realistic and I would say intimate to the way in which we think and the way in which we live. Nonetheless, usul al-fiqh, legal theory, and the other elements of what we said, legal maxims and the higher objectives of the law, they contain within them very powerful tools to help me reason rationally, logically, dispassionately. So for example, in usul al-fiqh, elements of usul al-fiqh teach me ways to think. Elements within al-qawa'id, al-fiqhiyya teach me principles to use to judge and weigh between what is beneficial and what is harmful. And principles within the maqasid of the sharia teach me what is benefit and what are the levels of benefit. Not every benefit is the same. There's some benefits that are more important than others, more essential to others. And how do I understand benefit in this more comprehensive, more subtle way so that I don't choose that which is less benefit over that which is more? And so the maqasid give me a map of the different levels of benefit. So through usul al-fiqh in general then, we learn ways to think, principles to think, and also we learn the different levels of benefit that I want to actualize and how to weigh, assess, and judge between them. At this point, though we can speak, and inshallah we will together, about these principles, it might still be a bit theoretical because we're only speaking about it. So at the end of this series, inshallah, what we would like to do together, for those who have watched and studied well the concepts and know well the concepts, and perhaps even have to do a multiple choice exam, we will have interactive sessions where we will look at, inshallah, 11 or so practical case studies. And the case studies will involve, for example, social activism, will involve social media, will involve a case study of a scenario about education, about arts, about literature, about romance, even in the field of da'wah, about the issue of vegetarianism, for example. These will be brief case studies, and the sessions will be an interactive opportunity to study the case and then also to interact by applying these principles, both spiritual and rational, to the case study in order to, and because the case studies, inshallah, they span different aspects of life and they touch on different very important topical issues in our modern life. There'll be ways of exploring them through the principles, applying the principles, learning from one another, and also understanding my shortcomings in applying the principles, and therefore strengthening both my understanding and my practical usage of these principles. And then lastly, just as a general summary, what are the intents or the objectives of the series? And I think probably we covered them already. One is to familiarize myself with the spiritual and rational principles to help me make better decision makings in my personal and collective life. Number two, to help me make decisions that are more rational, more dispassionate, better. Number three, to help me be more self-critical about where my blind spots and biases are. Through learning of the principles and the cases, where do I fall short? What are my blind spots? And to try to be more aware of them and therefore to try to remedy them and thus make better decisions. Number four, to connect the realms of both spirituality and rationality as intended by our deen, so that our decision making is cognizant and aware and sensitive to both dimensions of our disposition and nature. That is, our decisions are at once rational and secure our benefit in this life, and also spiritually acute and sensitive, and thereby maximize our benefit spiritually in this life and in the next. And of course, finally, to help me and you make better decisions. If I only learn to make decisions that are 20% better, if I only learn 20% of the material, I'll be making 20% better, inshallah, choices. If I learn the material well and apply it at a level of 80%, for example, inshallah, my decisions will be all that much better. Learning these principles will only make my decision making better. And of course, you might be asking, well, are we not playing expert scholar by learning these principles? And the answer to that is, of course, we are not. We are not here to learn the principles in order to generate fiqh and law and jurisprudence. We're not here to pronounce on what is allowed and halal and what is haram or prohibited. We're here to apply the principles to a realm of life that is permissible, and to choose between the choices we have every day, permissible choices. What is a better choice versus what is not so good a choice, but we're not entering into the realms of the what is legitimate, halal, and what is illegitimate, haram. The realms that we use in everyday life. I don't ask a religious scholar for every principle I make in life. I don't ask them, should I redecorate my living room? What color should I paint it? I don't ask a scholar those questions. Those are within the realm of permissibility, and those are usually the decisions we make and take in life. And inshallah, the intent is to apply these principles to the small decisions and to the large decisions in life as well. Jazakumullah khairan. We look forward to interacting and engaging with you over the course of the series. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.